What is going on, Bucs fans? Back here at the Pirate Parlay podcast on the Sick Podcast Network. As always, I'm your host, JC Allen, and the bye week is over. It's time to play real games again that mean stuff for the Buccaneers. They got helped out a little bit over the weekend. Denver Broncos, I don't know what, that team's coming out of nowhere. Helped them out by beating the Falcons and narrowing that gap, but still a lot of work to do for this Buccaneers team in order to go out there and make a push for the playoffs. They're 4-6 right now. Got a very lax schedule. Giants are coming up next. That franchise is a mess. Thank goodness, if you can tell behind me why I don't like the Giants, other than just they're the next opponent this week. But so much more. Injury report came out. There's some big names on there. What does that mean for this Bucs team? Mike is back. Mike is back, maybe back. Is he back? Play and play? Okay, we don't know. We'll get into that too, and so much more on the other side. And I got a special guest coming in. Super excited to have him on. Super excited to be relinked with him. Spend a lot of time with him. He's an awesome guy. Up and coming name you should know. And we'll get into all that. I'll bring him in after the break. See you then.
Turn up your volume. Because you're about to listen to The Sick Podcast. Pirate Parlay.
Battle intercepted, picked off in the end zone. Bucs are going to beat the Chiefs. We're the champions of the world.
The sickest Tampa Bay Buccaneers podcast. It's going to be sick.
Welcome back after the break here on the Sick Podcast Network. This is Pirate Parlay. I'm JC Allen. I want to ask all of you right now to like, subscribe, turn on notifications, tell a friend, text someone, tell them, hey, this podcast is on right now. You guys need to check it out. This is awesome. Go ahead, do all that. And while you do that, I'm going to announce my special guest today. He is the one and only Adam Slivon from Pewter Report. Back at it with my buddy here. I've watched this man grow from intern to just a special powerhouse in the Tampa Bay Buccaneers industry here. If you don't know who he is, get familiar with him because he's going to be the next up-and-coming guy on the rise. Great analysis. Every week after a game, he puts out his 10 takeaways from the game. Must read for me. I always tune into that and so much more. He's on the podcast over at Pewter Report every Thursday, I believe, doing his thing there. You've seen him with interviewing people like Jason Light, and so many other guys over there. He's doing his thing. Happy to have him on. Adam Sly is what I call him. Slivon, how are you doing, my man?
Man, I appreciate the kind words, JC. I'm doing great. Excited for this week with the Bucs. They have a must-win game against the Giants, and really excited to kind of go over some of the key topics that have really kind of unfolded. You have the band getting back together, kind of like we are right now with Mike Edwards, with Jordan Whitehead and Antoine Winfield Jr., another Mike Evans looking to get healthy and play this week, and Jamel Dean maybe on the scene. So excited to be back on with you. Absolutely.
Getting the band back together. It was so funny watching Jamel Dean's press conference. You could just see, he's like, look at, I was excited.
Yeah.
he's such a facial emotion guy that like when he gets excited about something, there's no hiding it from him. And yeah, it's awesome to have Mike Edwards back in town. We know one thing with Edwards back in town, the cleat game just got stepped up in the locker room. Everyone needs to raise their game now. He's going to have those fresh Jordans. The lasting image in my mind is Mike Edwards making that interception against the Saints with those sick Jordans on, coming down with them. Edwards is great. He's a ball hawk. 7 interceptions with the Buccaneers over his 4 years. Really 3 as a real full-time, part-time player, I would say. It's good to have him back. And you mentioned Jamel Dean. Good to have him back. Good to have maybe Tyke Smith back. We'll see. Let's jump right into there too, because we brought it up. The injury report came out today. Bucs had a full week off to kind of recuperate, get healthy, kind of reinvigorate themselves with a stretch run of 7 games down the stretch to try to lock up a playoff spot. And there are some concerning things on the injury report. I will definitely admit that, but there's some positives as well. But let's start with the negative, because I always like to end on a high note, and appreciate everyone in the comments. I see you, Phil, Christopher, and Bri. What's up, guys? Guys, feel free to chime in on the side. We'll definitely get you involved here as well. Let's jump into this injury report. I'll go through the list of names first, and then we'll jump and attack some guys. So I feel like we definitely need to keep an eye on and what happens if they're not playing. So Ben Bredesen, starting left guard was a full participant with a shoulder. Jamel Dean has that hamstring, full participant. He's still in that 21-day practice window, so he's not activated yet. Mike Evans, the big one, wide receiver, obviously hamstring injury. He was limited in practice today. The return to practice, so all intents and purposes, he plans on playing. I reported that prior to him, that becoming, public knowledge the day before, that, likely return for him would be after this bye week. Greg Gaines, Vita Vea's backup nose tackle, has played really well. Had a sack this season. Didn't practice with a foot injury. Will Golston, who's been on the injury report, it seems like all season, he's got a knee injury, but he was a full participant. Joy Hill, interesting one. The cornerback they just promoted to the active roster from the practice squad. He did not participate with an ankle injury. Bucky Irving, who previously Todd Bowles said would be probably limited every day until Friday, was actually a full participant with that toe injury, so that time off must have done him some well. Zion McCollum, another cornerback here with question marks. I spoke to him after the game. He said he just tweaked the hamstring. He should be fine, but now it showed up as a do not participate on Wednesday with that same hammy. That's concerning. Jalen McMillan dealing with the hamstring as well. 4 hamstring injuries for this Bucs team. He's a full participant. He was close to go 2 weeks ago. Likely to play this week unless he has a setback. And then 2 big ones. Tyke Smith's probably, if he didn't get injured and hasn't missed time, I would say he's probably the defensive player of the year. I know a lot of people look at Jared Verse and Quinion Mitchell at that, but I think Tyke Smith's impact, if you want to talk about MVP, defensive player, impact he's had on the team, he's, to me, by far and away, probably the top guy there. And he's been limited with a knee injury, banged it up on Friday's practice before the game against the San Francisco 49ers, and he was out. So we'll follow that very closely. And then Tristan Wirfs. Everyone gasped and held their breath when he hobbled off the field and went to the locker room with that foot injury, they're calling it as well. He was actually limited today, and I did tweet out after it happened that, there's a possibility that he could play with this sprained MCL as soon as after the bye week. Vita Vea had just missed 1 game after going out early in the Lions game. Tristan Wirfs went out early in that San Francisco game. Vea missed the game against the Broncos, but then returned in week 4 against the Eagles. Could it be something that Tristan Wirfs does too? He misses a week, goes out early, misses a week, comes back and plays against the Giants. Something we're going to have to keep an eye on and monitor throughout the week. And why don't we start there? Because this front seven's no joke. I think they're second in the league in sacks. And they're getting after the quarterback. They're putting pressure on the quarterback. It's probably one of the only, besides that and Malik Neighbors, probably the only saving grace for the Giants right now, who we'll get into that cluster of a mess over there a little bit later. But, Justin School's got to step in. I thought he played relatively well against the 49ers, much better on the left side than he is on the right side. But it's not Tristan Wirfs. And to me, 80% Tristan Wirfs is still better than 100% Justin School. What happens if Wirfs can't go? Obviously, School will step in, but how do you think that changes the game plan and kind of limits what tight end 1 can do on the field?
Yeah, I think there's 2 things that really affect the Bucs' offensive game plan going into this week. The first being if Wirfs can't go. The second, if Mike can't go. Baker Mayfield kind of talked about today just how much Mike Evans opens things up, like schematically, and what they can do with the passing game. I mean, last week against the 49ers, Mayfield only had 116 passing yards. But when you look at Wirfs specifically, he does so much. Like, he has probably been, him and Trent Williams, the best left tackle in the game of football this year. He's been shut down, not allowing any pressures. So you have Justin School, and it doesn't get mentioned that he had to switch from right tackle playing against the Lions and Aiden Hutchinson, now switching over to left tackle. And I thought he did pretty well holding his own, and he's gotten a lot better since that game in Detroit. But again, as you mentioned, JC, no Tristan Wirfs. Nobody's going to be able to replace his impact. And you look at the Giants front 7, man. They have Brian Burns, Azeez Ojulari, Dexter Lawrence up the middle, Sexy Dexy. They had 36 sacks so far in 10 games. And they make up for what they don't do in the pass defense. They only have 1 interception all season, none from a member of their secondary, as a backup linebacker. So their bread and butter defensively is getting after the quarterback. They do it really well, and without Wirfs, that's not looking good for the Bucs.
No, and Wirfs, he's actually probably been, I'd say, a tick better than Trent Williams this year. He'll never say it. But 92.5% blocking, pass blocking grade, first in the NFL, 1.6 pressure rate allowed, tied for first in the NFL. He's been absolutely phenomenal, and he remains that. Even last year, making that switch, he had a few hiccups, but I think it's one of these things where, and Phil alludes to it, I wouldn't rush Wirfs. You don't want to rush Tristan Wirfs back if he can't go, but if he can go, you got to put him out there. Again, like I said, 80% Wirfs is better than 100%, school. So it's going to be interesting to see how he progresses, and that's going to be the biggest thing. I don't see him bumping up from limited at all, probably throughout the week. And I feel like, and Bowles, I think, alluded to, he's going to be a game time decision today, this week. So, we'll see where he's at. Tristan is probably going to be a game day thing. He was doing a little bit of things. I don't know where he's at as far as being ready to play. So we'll see how that goes. Again, it's not unprecedented. Same thing happened to Vita Vea. Sprained MCL, missed the week and was back in there. We'll see. From what I'm hearing, it's really kind of just up in the air right now. They're not really sure until the week progresses, but good sign so far seeing him out there as limited.
Yeah, and it is encouraging that he didn't even go on injured reserve. He had the bye week to kind of rest up and not put pressure on his leg. And the fact that he was out there today, even in limited action, like still working on his pass set, I mean, it points to, if he isn't ready to go this week, the hope would be at Carolina, divisional game, he's ready to go.
Right. Yeah. So, I mean, that's the hope, because, Davey Boy's going to have some stuff ready for him, planned for him, for this Bucs team. He knows the personnel very well. Not that they might not have the talent to execute it, but, he'll come up with something. At least he can give EJ Aravo, the defensive coordinator over there, a little bit extra ammo. Let's move to the secondary, because there's a lot of question marks here. Jamel Dean practicing in full with that hamstring. He said he's ready to go. He said he's ready to play and all. And I think he's going to. I mean, Bowles said that sees what kind of shape he's in this week. I think Bowles is just saying that just in case something flares up. But I think Jamel Dean is going to play this week. Are you in agreement?
I would say so, yeah. Like the fact that Todd Bowles said today that he's healthy and maybe just not in full football shape, by the end of the week, you'd have to assume that he'd be ready to go, especially with McCollum's status in the air.
Right, exactly. And that's another big one. McCollum dealing with that hamstring, did not practice. And then Troy Hill also, cornerback that they brought up from the practice squad. Obviously, they let go of Keenan Isaac. They also let go of Kayvon Merriweather. Isaac went to the Raiders. Merriweather went to the Lions, both on their practice squads after being waived after the additions of a guy like Mike Edwards and then the promotion of Troy Hill. But Hill provides a lot of experience. He's over 60 games started, 406 tackles, a plethora of other key stats, and he's got some inside-outside versatility, more suited for the inside, but still has some outside versatility who can, he's a veteran who can come in and step in and be a guy who, if they need to, jump in and play. And maybe you're not as worried as having him out there as you are with Josh Hayes or Tyreek Funderburk. But he did not practice as well. I know some people are like, how did the guy we just signed off the practice squad already has an ankle injury? Well, it could be something that's lingering. But I think you look at those two, along with Tyke Smith, their nickel cornerback, limited with that knee injury. If those guys go down, if you're missing Jamel Dean and Zion McCollum, you're in a world of trouble. Malik Neighbors is something fierce. They've got Darius Slayton, who can still do some work on the outside as well. They really like Theo Johnson, the tight end that they drafted this year. I think it's Theo Johnson, who can do some stuff as well. And then, Tyrone Tracy, he can catch the ball out of the backfield a little bit as well. So they're being in trouble there if both of those guys can't go. I tend to think that Jamel Dean will be fine, but Zion McCollum, if he can't go and Troy Hill can't go, they're in a world of trouble.
They really are. And it kind of reminds me last year when Carlton Davis and Jamel Dean, they would go down like alternate games. It would be one of them would be out, Zion would fill in. That's kind of how I see this with McCollum and Dean. Like if McCollum can't go, the hope would be that Dean would be ready to play. But if both of them aren't ready, I mean, I don't care if it's Tommy DeVito or a fan in the stands throwing the ball to Malik Neighbors. The fact that it's Josh Hayes and Tyreek Funderburk as the top two corners, he's going to eat. He's going to have a big game. And you mentioned all the Giants' weapons. Another guy, Wan'Dale Robinson, really
Yes.
effective in like the short intermediate pass game. But you also mentioned Tyrone Tracy, and JC, in the past 2 games, he's had 100 yards rushing. Well, 2 out of the past 3. And you look at this game with DeVito under center, he's going to have a big game potentially with them putting more emphasis on running the football. How do you see that going?
Yeah, and Wan'Dale Robinson, too, to allude to here, someone on this coaching staff is very familiar with Wan'Dale Robinson.
Yeah.
Liam Cohen had him in Kentucky. You talked about actually having specific plays drawn up for Wan'Dale with this players over plays philosophy. But yeah, when you look at Tyrone Tracy, that's going to be another situation where, okay, the Bucs run defense has been middle of the pack. It hasn't been anything special like it has been over the few years. But Zion McCollum, Jamel Dean, their ability to play physical and run support, and that's a big reason why the Bucs didn't really like Keenan Isaac, why I didn't see the field, is because he's a very good coverage guy, but he's not physical. He's not going to come down. He's not a great tackler, and he's not someone who's going to be aggressive and run support. You need a guy like Jamel Dean out there. Jamel Dean
Exactly.
pretty much has gotten hurt the last 3 years making plays in the run game. Like you look at some of these last year, his injury came from coming downhill in the run game. He's a force. Zion McCollum has been one of the best tacklers on the team. I know he didn't have a great game a couple of games ago, but he's been one of the best tacklers on the team. And that's a big far cry from a year ago and 2 years ago, where that was somewhere where he struggled. And those guys come down heavy in run support. And then obviously the other guy we're talking about here is Tyke Smith. You want to talk about a guy heavy in run support? I mean, this guy lives and breathes it.
Yeah.
And not just that, he's going to knock balls out of running backs' hands, wide receivers' hands, 3 forced fumbles on the season. They'll definitely miss him as well. So I think it's super important to have all 3 of those guys back. If you had to prioritize, who you need more among Troy Hill, Jalen McMillan, Tyke Smith, kind of who we know how important Zion and Jamel is, but out of those 2 guys, Christian Izzian's still in the fold. Mike Edwards can play a little slot. Antoine Winfield Jr. can play a little slot. Like who's the most important out of this group that needs to play?
Yeah, that's a great question. I would definitely say Tyke Smith. You just mentioned his impact. And earlier when you talked about him potentially being in the running for Defensive Rookie of the Year against a guy like Jared Verse, you could make the argument that Tyke Smith has been one of the most valuable playmaking contributors for the Bucs defense this year. And just his ability to force fumbles and really play tight coverage. I think he's a very physical guy, especially for his size. And like you have guys like Wan'Dale Robinson, Darius Slayton, who can work in the slot. Having that guy like Tyke Smith is huge. And if he misses a game, Troy Hill misses a game, you kind of wonder who would be in that nickel spot, especially if maybe Zion can't go. Hey, who do you put in there? Do you take Winfield from free safety, put him in the nickel spot? He said he wants to make more plays. Could he do it there? There's a lot of questions with the secondary, and for a defense that has just been so questionable all year.
Right. And I want to touch on what you just brought up too, with all those different guys playing different areas, because with Mike Edwards coming back, and if Tyke's back and everyone's healthy in the secondary, like we hope and expect them to be down the stretch, that opens up a world of possibilities for Todd Bowles in the back end. And we'll jump into that. But first, I definitely want to go out and shout out one of our sponsors here on the Pirate Parlay podcast, the Bucs Cruise. Guys, you are running out of time. There's less than a month left to book your tickets on the Bucs Cruise. It's going to be so much fun. December 11th is the final day to book your tickets. They've still got some rooms left. Tell them I sent you over there. Maybe they'll give you a little discount, a little deal. Who knows? But you guys definitely need to check this out. March 7th to the 10th in 2025. Out of Fort Lauderdale, hits Key West, goes to Bimini, Bahamas, comes back. So many awesome players going to be on this. Jordan Whitehead, Brad Johnson, Trey Palmer, as you can see on the screen, but Mike Allstott, Derek Brooks, Kalijah Cansey, Graham Barton, Luke Gedeke, Trey Palmer, Rashad White, Zion McCollum, Christian Wirfs, so many other players. Derek Brooks will make an appearance as well. There's so much going on there. So many different events, sail away party, trivia contest, bingo, cocktail parties. You're going to win prizes at all those things. Player panels that are awesome to listen to, water volleyball competition between the players and then the players and the crew. It's so much fun. So many different theme parties each night to keep the fun going all cruise long. You're not going to want to miss this awesome opportunity to create lasting memories with not just your family or your friends, whoever you go with, but Bucs fans from all over the country, and of course Bucs players and legends as well. It's so much fun. They've got a make your own old fashioned bar. They got a casino in there. Casino, you'll find Jamel Dean and Luke Gedicke down there gambling. So much fun. It's awesome time. Definitely check it out. It's not too late to get your tickets, but it is getting close. Again, Christmas right around the corner. Your significant other, your kids, your grandchildren, whatever, your whole family. Check it out. You're not going to be disappointed. Nathan in the comments, he's going booked and paid. Operation Fill the Boat. We're trying to fill the boat this year. Throw that up there, Jimmy. Operation Fill the Boat. It's going to be an awesome time. I know some of the Pewter Report guys are going. I'm not sure if you're on that list. If you made the cut, I don't know who needs to bribe Scott the most. Maybe buy him some old fashions or something like that. But definitely check it out. It's an awesome time. But talking about the secondary and what they can do, you had some players there already. Right? Your secondary is kind of built out, right? With Dean and Zion and Tyke and Winfield and obviously Whitehead. You've got Christian Izien, who's played really well when asked to. He's been one of the most unsung players on the team, I think, with the impact he's made. And now you bring in a guy like Mike Edwards, and you bring up a guy like Troy Hill, two veterans that you bring into this system at the bye week. Now, you're not going to take any of your starters out. But my question to you is, what does this allow Bowles to do? We all know that the inside linebacker has been an issue. AJ Britt has struggled in coverage. JJ Russell hasn't been much better. Vi Jones, what are we doing here?
Yeah.
And Levante David, I hate to say it, but hasn't looked like Levante David. He's made some plays still, but he's not the Levante David that you can say, hey, first half of the Super Bowl covered Travis Kelce and hold him to minimal gains, He's not that guy anymore. So with all these extra players here that are versatile, can play in the slot, can play safety, you got guys who can play that star position, right? Tyke Smith played it at Georgia. Izien's probably a little too small, but has a tenacity. But you got Jordan Whitehead, who can maybe play a big nickel linebacker, big dime linebacker type style. Antoine Winfield can do whatever you ask him to. I'm convinced he could play defensive end and still get to the quarterback. What do you see Bowles doing with all that talent? How does he get them involved? And is there a path potentially one of these guys slides down and obviously passing situations, third down, and maybe become that linebacker type role and give Bowles more options on the secondary?
Yeah, I really think there is this. And especially, like you mentioned, a guy like Jordan Whitehead, a physical player who they signed to be that big hitter. Maybe he's disappointed at the strong safety spot, but you bring a guy back like Mike Edwards, who's a playmaker. Maybe you slide down a guy like Whitehead, who can be that tackler and probably an upgrade at this point over KJ Britt. I think anyone would probably be. I mean, he's been one of the worst inside linebackers graded by PFF this year. But what I really like about what the Bucs have done, maybe they should have done it a little bit sooner, is that they prioritized experience over kind of like Kayvon Merriweather, Keenan Isaac, who are really no more than practice squad special team guys. You bring a guy up like Troy Hill. He's played in 6 games this year for the Panthers. He did okay. He did all right, but he has 10 years of experience. And then Mike Edwards, Bucs fans are familiar with him. Todd Bowles is still familiar with him. He's going to reacclimate quickly into the defense. And so you have all those pieces, versatile guys like Todd Bowles. He prioritizes communication, but also guys playing various roles. You could see Tyke Smith play that star role. Guys shuffling around in the box. Like you bring Whitehead down in the box. Izien, he's shown, like you mentioned, he's been an unsung player, probably one of the more underrated guys on the unit. He just doesn't really have a clear path to playing time, but there's a lot that you can do there, JC. And I think that you're going to start seeing that on Sunday.
Yeah, and Mike talked about it. He's out of practice on Monday, the bonus practice, and they're just doing a walkthrough. But he's talking about, oh, I remember this. Oh, yeah. Okay, I remember this, and it's going to come back to him quickly. Bowles was asked about signing Mike Edwards. He said Mike was good when he was here. We really liked him. We never want him to leave in the first place. But obviously, with the business, you can't do everything. having him back, he can do a lot of things for us in the pass game and in the run game as well. He's very aware, has very good self-awareness. We just got to see what kind of shape he's in and what kind of recall he has. Some things have switched with the defense since we were last here. We got to bring him along and see where he's at. And that's kind of what Bull says about everybody. We got to bring him along, see where he's at. That's kind of a standard Todd Bullism, but I think there's a path for him to see the field this Sunday. Obviously, he's going to have to play a little special teams too. I think he's fine with that. You get waived in the middle of the season. I think you kind of, and he did it in with the Chiefs and he did it with the Bills. But I feel like there's a spot for him to get into the game and maybe make some plays. And, especially against a guy like Tommy DeVito. He's a guy who, he's a third string quarterback that they're leapfrogging Drew Lock with.
The disrespect, by the way.
The disrespect. It's Tommy DeVito. And I want to get into that, the dysfunctional too, but I also want to reach out because I got some great people in the comments. I want to read some of their stuff too. If you guys have any questions, now's the time to ask us. I know you guys are having some conversation back there. I love that. But definitely, if you have questions for me, Adam, shoot them in there. This one I thought was funny. Bryce said, Otten already said I can't compete with Edwards' hair game and shaved everything. He's got no mustache, no hair. Gave him the buzz cut. He's like, okay, Evans is back. All right, you guys, no double teams. Watch out.
Yeah,
because he's been balling out, but San Francisco was like, yeah, no, not this week. He had a good start, and they started to double team him. Philip Berger says I wouldn't rush Wirfs. We kind of talked about that. I think it depends where he's at. I think if he's like 60%, 75%, I think you hold off. But if he's around like 85, 90%, I think, hey, let's go. Let's go. If you're feeling uncomfortable, we can always pull you out of the game, but let's run it. Wirfs.
At this point in the season, though, like not everybody's at 100%. Like you'll find very few players at 100%. Even if you're at 90%, I think you put them out there, even if it's for half the game.
Yeah, we got a Panther fan in here. I think that's Ark, who I play Fortnite with. He said you were talking about Burns. Panthers should have never traded Brian Burns unless it was for something big like the Rams offered us. It was like 2 firsts and a second. They ended up getting a second round pick for him, and he's been an absolute monster. But the Panthers weren't going to pay him. So Buccaneer Bryce, we were talking about Wirfs. He says we got games coming up against Khalil Mack and Max Crosby. We need to hold him out if he's not 100%. I think School has quietly become one of the best backup tackles in the league. I disagree with you there. I think he's made some strides, and no one really feels comfortable out there backup left, right tackle. Like there's a few teams who you feel like, okay, this guy, we're good. We can still. Yeah. I think he's been good enough for them to still compete, but I don't know if I'd call him one of the best backup tackles in the league. You also mentioned Micah Parsons is coming down the line too.
Yeah, that point I agree with. Like there is big matchups. Like Khalil Mack, he's elite. Max Crosby, probably one of the best in the business as well. And then obviously Micah Parsons, probably the only good part about the Cowboys defense or the Cowboys right now in general. So there is logic in sitting Wirfs maybe the next 2 games against weaker opponents and kind of ramping him up.
Panther fan says Slayton is scary when Daniel Jones plays good. And with DeVito, I feel like that offense could potentially be dangerous. DeVito. Let's talk about DeVito here. Let's talk about the whole. We'll come back to the rest of you guys down there for sure. I see you guys all jumping in. Let's talk about this whole move with DeVito over Drew Lock. We knew Daniel Jones was going to bench at some point, right?
Yeah.
We knew that was going to happen. It was like Thanos, inevitable. But the news comes out. I think it was on Saturday. It might have been Sunday, and then. Or it might have been Monday. I don't know. It probably was Monday after the game.
I think it was Monday morning.
All the days mesh together nowadays for me. It was Monday morning that he was going to be benched for this game. And a lot of people just kind of speculated, all right, it's Drew Lock's time. They signed him to be the number 2. They lost, was it Tyrod Taylor or one of those guys to the Jets, their backup quarterback to the Jets. And they signed Drew Lock to be the number 2. We watched it on Hard Knocks. That was the deal. Drew Lock's the good number 2. And then about 2 hours later, or not even, someone breaks that it's not Drew Lock. It's Tommy DeVito, Danny's brother, Danny DeVito's son, nephew, whatever. Mr. Chicken Cutlets with the agent in the hat. Kind of what's going on there. And then we get today reporters talking to Drew Lock, and he's like, I don't know. Like I signed on to be the number 2 quarterback. I figured I was going to be the number 2 quarterback. I don't know You would have to ask them. I have questions about that myself. I'm still going to be here for Daniel Jones. He's become one of my best friends. I don't know what's going on. That's not good. That's dysfunctional right off the get-go. And the Giants, I love it. I love it so much. Stole Super Bowl, a perfect season from me. Oh, my goodness. With that blatant holding call on that helmet catch. You watch it again back. It drives me crazy every time. Eli and the Giants got away with it. He had his arm wrapped around his head. It's like the Chiefs referees were playing back in 2007. I digress. I'm getting off the rails here. That game obviously triggers.
Still hurts.
It still hurts. It'll always hurt. Always hurt. I still someone made a rap. Obviously, Buccaneers fans, they made a rap. I made a rap for the Buccaneers in 2020. You can check it out. No, legit. It's published. It's on Spotify. It's on Apple. It's called We Dem Bucks by DZ. He rapped it. I wrote it. I wasn't rapping it. But anyways, there's a little jingle. 18-0. One more to go. Super Bowl. Whoa. And it will forever be grained in my head with that hold. But anyways, again, I digress. Way off topic here. Giants are dysfunctional right now. And we've heard Dexter Lawrence come out and say, that's my quarterback. He's still my quarterback. And other people in the organization have chimed in, not in favor of this move. What can that do to this team? Do you think they're going to be focused, or do you think it's the opposite, where they kind of put this game on their back, and try to win this one to prove a point? Or is it the absolute opposite way, where they're like, you think it's Daniel Jones?
Yeah, and I just want to kind of preface what I'm going to say by both New York teams right now, JC, are so dysfunctional. You got the Jets on one side. They fire their head coach. They fire their GM. And Aaron Rodgers is now all of them. And now you got the Giants. They bench Daniel Jones for Tommy DeVito. And it doesn't make sense. Tommy DeVito. I kind of get it, though, from the Giants' perspective, embracing maybe a tank, a more intentional, fun tank. Hey, we got Tommy Cutlets out there with the spaghetti sauce. We're going to go lose some games, get a top 5 pick, and maybe go after a quarterback next year. But doing so and making Daniel Jones the 3, and now he might even be the number 4 with Tim Boyle being signed on the practice squad, maybe that emergency quarterback. Just the disrespect to Daniel Jones. And although he might be the weak link, he had one good season in 2022 where he threw 15 touchdowns in a whole season. He's a game manager. That Vanilla Vic, maybe he can move around a little bit, but he's not going to win you games at 2-8 at this point in the season. Coming off a loss to the Panthers, you kind of know what you have in him. And so I get it. Incentively, if he gets injured, he has a $23 million guarantee next year. Drew Lock also has some incentives as well, should he play the rest of the season. So maybe they roll with DeVito for the next few games before going to Lock. But man, talk about a dysfunctional quarterback situation.
Yeah, and you mentioned the Jets too. That's awesome. The Jets have never really been great, though. They had their one little stretch when Sexy Rexy and his foot fetish was the coach of the Giants. I'm not getting a job at ESPN anytime soon. But other than that, it's just screw them. I don't.
Yeah.
The Giants.
Except Aaron Rodgers. That's my boy.
The Giants is where my Aaron Rodgers is the biggest problem over there.
Hey man, I don't want to hear it right now. I'm hurting.
Oh geez, but yeah, so it's just crazy, the whole thing. My focus, my wonder here is, and I heard I forget who was talking about it, but they're like, this team's gonna implode. It's gonna implode, and by Thanksgiving, it's just gonna be kind of blown up. People are going to be at each other's throats. It's going to be finger pointing. Brian Daboll might be on the axe. Joe Schoen might be on the axe. I love it. I love it. I'm just sitting back here. But do the players, it's okay, do the players rally around this and say, hey, we got to win this game, our coach or whatever? Or do they kind of just say, you know what, screw it. You're going to think Daniel Jones is the biggest problem? Because that was what people said. We're 2-8. We are 2-8 as the Giants. He's not 2-8. Everyone has a hand in this. And do they kind of you never want to roll over as a player. You always want to compete, but maybe not have 100% behind them. Maybe kind of, if it gets out of hand early, just kind of turn the gas off. I don't know. Well, I don't know. I don't think so, but something to keep an eye on, like, hey, told you it wasn't him. It's everybody. Anyways, Panther fan says Wendell Robinson is legit. An only short pass receiver. He has so many receptions, pretty sure than Neighbors, but can't do anything with the short passes. I mean, they can if the Bucs continue to miss tackles. I just wrote an article about this. 46 missed tackles in the last 4 games, Adam. 46. Wow. That's terrible.
Yikes.
That's not
11
good.
and a half a game.
It's not good. That's like worst team in the league, like bad. Like it's not good. They need to get it together. If you guys are just tuning in, you're here on the Pirate Parlay podcast on the Sick Podcast Network. I'm your host, JC. I'm joined with Adam Slivon over at Pewter Report. He's doing amazing things there. I want to give another shout out to one of our amazing sponsors over here, FanGo Tickets. You guys need to check out FanGo Tickets. They are locally owned and operated here in the St. Pete, Tampa Bay area. Guys, a hurricane just came through. It's always good to support small businesses, especially when small businesses are going to support you. There's so many good things that they're cooking up over here. If you're tired of getting blitzed by the big ticket companies, turn to FanGo for your exclusive locally owned and operated Tampa Bay ticketing provider that offers fans like you full transparency. When I say full transparency, that means everything. It means you're getting to see how much the tickets cost, how much the taxes and fees are, and literally how much they're making off of them. It's not one of these things where hidden fees are built in like some of these other ticket agencies that claim to have no hidden fees, like a Tick Pick. These things, it's legit transparency here, and they have so many different things that they're doing coming up as well. They prioritize fair pricing and no hidden fees for Tampa fans to enjoy events without unexpected costs. Visit fangotickets.com for unbeatable prices, personalized seat selection, and local partnerships that will take your game day to the next level. When I mean take your game day to the next level in the partnerships, they're partnering with parking garages, they're partnering with hotels, they're partnering with restaurants. So let's say, again, I'm just going to throw this out. It's not one of their partners that I know of, but let's say Hat Tricks, you're going to a Lightning game, right? And you want to go to Hat Tricks. You want to go pregame first. Well, you buy your tickets there. Eventually, they'll have partnerships with some of these restaurants where you can reserve a table with like a combo meal, like something like $15 for a burger, fries, and a beer. You got a reserve table at this time. So when you go there, you're not like waiting 45 minutes for a table. And you're like, oh my goodness, the game starts in like 30 minutes. We got to eat and get out of here. Everything's taken care of for you. Parking's taken care of for you. Everything. All you got to do is go park, show up to the restaurant, have your food, have your beer, reserve the table, head into the game, and enjoy yourself a night. So many cool things are happening with FanGo. And again, they're locally owned here in Tampa Bay. They're starting to add more concerts to their lineup as well as not just sporting events, and they're going to continue to expand. Once the Rays are back, they'll have tickets to them, to the Steinbrenner, working on getting some tickets to the Magic. And other things happening around Tampa Bay area. So check them out for sure. They're doing great things. FanGo Tickets, follow them on Twitter, follow them on Instagram. We'll be doing some more giveaways towards the end of the season here too for a couple more of these home games. So check them out. Okay, we'll jump back into the comments here. Nathan Elliott says drinking with Adam Slivon and JC Allen. He's psyched about that. Bryce said even better would have gone Branch and not had to watch Neal last year. Then Tyke this year at nickel, but means no Whitehead though. Yeah, I mean Brian Branch is a stud, but yeah, you're not getting Tyke likely. You're probably not getting Whitehead because Branch is now a nickel corner. I think Branch and Tyke are probably the two top two guys right now. If you're talking about all pro, or because they don't differentiate in Pro Bowl, but if you're looking at all pro nickel cornerbacks, you can make a case for Tyke to be second team all pro, I think, this year.
I'd say those two, but also a guy on the Giants who's doing pretty well himself, the Kentucky rookie Drew Phillips. He's actually the highest graded corner right now. He's doing pretty well too. Shout out to him.
Drew Phillips, another one. Yeah, so two rookies there. Kentucky guys we just talked about. Obviously, we got a Kentucky guy in house with Liam Cohen. Jason Light, true the GOAT. Bucky Irving, Tyke Smith, Graham Barton, all starters, potential Pro Bowls from one draft. Just need to overhaul the defensive staff. Nathan says, what will Adam be drinking on the cruise? Creamsicle, blue motorcycles. I don't know if Adam knows what those are.
No,
I don't know what a blue motorcycle is.
I don't know either. A blue Long Island maybe would get a little crazy, but
a little blue carousel in there. Okay.
yeah.
The Bucs kind of remind me of the Bengals when they are healthy, decent, very mid defense, but an offense that could blow teams out of the water. Yeah. And I mean, I think if you had Chris Godwin back with the defense, let's say they only missed 23 tackles instead of 46, they're probably at least 500 right now, if not have a winning record. Christopher Cole says, I believe Levante is playing injured. I don't know. I just think he's lost a bit of a step, and I wouldn't be shocked if, and I've said this earlier this season, guys, enjoy Levante, because I don't know if he comes back next year, especially if they miss the playoffs. I don't know if he comes back next year. He hasn't really said anything. We talked earlier in the season on my podcast. He's just kind of 1 year at a time. But I would just enjoy every second that you have of Levante David, just knowing that he might not be back next year.
It kind of seems like the end of the road for him. And
it
then
does feel like that.
At inside linebacker, though, like you assume KJ Britt's not back. Levante retires. You have Servassier Dennis, who's injury prone. Depending on how the season goes, you kind of almost have to wonder if they would switch to like a 4-3. And because you're going to need two inside linebackers pretty much. It's just a really tough situation.
4-3 is even more difficult because you don't have the body types there in your in-house outside linebacker and your edge rushers.
Maybe
play outside linebacker. I don't know if he could. I mean, he's a little too big to be like the traditional 4-3 outside linebacker. So, I mean, he's got the speed, and I think JTS, if he's back, probably not. But I don't know. It's one of those questions because you can't just rely on a rookie. You got to go and get a free agent because rookies tend to take a couple of years to really kind of find their own footing. But there's some good ones, and I know Josh Capo just put out an article for you guys highlighting some of them. So shout out to Josh, always doing great things. Josh has got an amazing article on a Substack too about attaching valuation for a player for draft pick trades. Definitely check that out. Josh Capel, friend of the show. He's got some great things coming on too. You guys are always killing it over there at my alma mater, alumni for life. Buccaneer Bryce says, add some weight to Whitehead and convert him to inside linebacker. Scoot at this point. I don't know if you could do that. Chocolate milk and Uncrustables. Get him up to 215. He'll be Deion Jones clone in his prime.
That's crazy.
I don't know about that, but I mean, it's a good idea at this point. Try anything, right? All right, now some questions are coming in. Have you heard why Tucker's not getting the ball more? Again, Tucker's problem still kind of on pass protection on third down. He's gotten better, but still it's not something where they trust him, especially in end of the game situations. He's not going to be in there for 2 minutes. He's not going to be in there for a hurry up or anything like that. That's going to be more Rashad or Bucky. And it's just hard. You got three guys. Like you can't just give them like 10, 20 snaps each and you got 60 offensive snaps, just divide them up like that. It's all about feel of the game. It's all about certain situations. Rashad's a bigger back. Bucky's a shiftier back. I still think Tucker is probably the best true running back as far as like lanes, vision, kind of certainly the fastest. But it's hard to get all three of these guys back, and you can't. I feel bad for Cohen trying to get all three of these guys involved. It's difficult.
He mentioned the challenge earlier this year of having a 3 running back rotation, kind of allocating touches to everyone. But you kind of wonder why, like, to begin the second half or maybe early in the fourth quarter when the defense is tired, like Sean Tucker had so much of his success in the Saints game in that second half. Get him the ball. He's an automatic 8 to 10 yards a carry, wearing down a defense. He's a big physical guy and pairs that with speed. You wonder why they don't use him more. That usage is kind of bizarre at this point. At least get him a couple of touches, but maybe we'll see that on Sunday.
Yeah, you gotta do something there. Next question: when is McMillan coming back? I think he'll be back this week. What they do and how they use these guys, and that's going to segue into my next question. Is okay. Evans is back. You have him, at the X. How do you think this rotation shakes out? And again, Bulls gave his Bulls answer. He can do some things, and he can do some things for us, and he can do some things for us. Okay, great. They can all do things for you, but who's going to be your slot? Who's going to be your Z? How is this lining up? How do you think this shakes out on Sunday?
Man, Sterling Shepard going back to New York, little revenge game maybe. I think he could get some touches and maybe get involved. But the last game against the 49ers, like, if there wasn't a receiver out there, like, it wouldn't have affected the game much. None of them did anything. Ryan Miller led the way with 1 catch for 11 yards. Sterling Shepard had a catch for 7 yards. I mean, you would expect a guy like Rakim Jarrett to step up just a little bit. None of them really have. And Todd Bowles mentioned today it's going to take more than one guy to kind of replace Chris Godwin. So you're going to see more of a rotation going forward. I would say Sterling Shepard probably leads the way. Jalen McMillan, if healthy, I mean, he was active the last game, but didn't go. He's kind of been disappointing his rookie year. Just not, you saw it in training camp. He can make plays. He just hasn't shown it on the field yet. They have to give him some run, though.
Yeah, I think I'll see your disappointment with Trey Palmer. The guy's got game-breaking speed. Where has that been? We haven't seen him take the top off the defense at all whatsoever. I'm inclined to say get used to seeing Ryan Miller. He's probably not the best wide receiver out of Jalen and Trey and Shepard and Rock even. But this guy blocks his ass off. In a game like this, where there's not going to be a lot of time to hold onto the ball and you're going to have to get rid of it, I can see a lot of screens, and that means a lot of wide receivers being asked to block. I can see Ryan Miller stacking up and probably being in the top 3 in snaps in this game after Mike Evans and maybe Sterling Shepard, just because of his blocking prowess. This guy blocks his ass off. But we'll see. We'll see how that all shakes out. I tend to think that Shepard is probably your Z, and then you're mixing guys in there in the slot, like here and there. We'll see. We'll see.
Yeah. Here and there, but I'd like to see more 21 personnel where they're running 2 running backs out there. Maybe put Rashad more in the slot. I mean, he's shown to be effective as a receiving back, especially in space. Get Bucky touches. Could be a way to get Sean Tucker involved. They got to try something, though, because outside of Mike Evans maybe returning, wide receivers really haven't done much.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. The thing with Rashad in the slot, and I addressed this on my last podcast, is it's fine if the corner's playing off. If you got a corner that's going to play physical and press him at the line, then I think he just becomes a wasted option, because I don't know if he can get off press coverage like that.
I don't think so.
If he's going up against someone like Drew Phillips, who's going to be all over him, I don't know if that works out for them. There's some things that I think they can do, and they've done it with Bucky, and they've done it even with Rashad, where they motion him out of the slot and stuff like that, and maybe use him more of as a decoy or to open things up. But I don't know if they can use him, and that's been a big question. Can we use Rashad as a slot? I don't know if they can use him as a true slot. Definitely some dial up, some things for him to do, and some different plays that can get him more active in the as a receiver. But we'll kind of have to. We'll see what Cohen has up his sleeve, because I know he's going to have something. As Buccaneer Bryce says, Bucs should jump out to an early lead against this Giants team. I think we'll see Tucker get involved like the Saints game when we had a lead and just want to control the clock at that point. They need to get out to an early lead, because they let these guys stick around, and that's something that Larry Foote said. We've been in a lot of fourth quarter games, and we haven't been able to finish. I just put an article about that over at Bucs Game Day on SI. Go check that out, about tackling and finishing. And that's going to be key. They need to improve their tackling. They need to finish. And not the offense. I don't think the offense is having necessarily a hard time finishing. And there's some plays they could definitely let back, but the defense needs to finish. Championship teams, the defense shuts shit down when it's time to shut it down.
Say it, yeah.
That's what it does. And this team has not been able to do that. And you need to do that. You need to do that. And if that's going to be the case, if you're going to go out there, you need to impose your will. You need to impose your will on offenses and say, we're shutting this down. Our offense has a lead. They did what they need to, and now it's in the fourth quarter. We're here. And they've done it a few times this season. Saints was one of them, to let them come back in the second quarter. And, there are some other games that they kind of, just kind of took over. The Eagles was another one. Then there's games they left their foot off the gas. They still won. The Commanders game, a couple late scores there by Jaden Daniels. They need to keep the foot on the gas for all 4 quarters and shut it down when it's time to. and be a fourth quarter defense. If they can't do that, then forget about the playoffs because they're not going to get out this 7-game stretch here. Playoffs. Quick shout out to my final sponsor. Then I'm going to get into a final thoughts with Adam here, and then we'll wrap it up. I appreciate everyone in here. If you're in here, like, subscribe, turn on notifications. If you're listening on Spotify or any of the streaming, Apple Podcast, whatever, I don't know what we stream on. I just do this. So if you're listening on any of that, I appreciate you guys for listening there. I don't know how to quantify listeners on there or viewers or comment, but I appreciate everyone listening on all your streaming podcast apps as well. So definitely shout out to you guys. But Mosley Heating and Air, one of our favorite sponsors over here. They actually sponsor my kids' football team too. So super shout out to them. When Florida heat hits hard, trust Mosley Heating and Air to keep you cool and comfortable with over 25 years of experience. Their family-owned business knows what it takes to keep your home's HVAC system running smoothly. Need a repair, new system, or maintenance plan? Now's the time to get it. We're getting the cold front, Adam. Cold front, so great. It's what makes Florida living here so worth it. You know, it's 78 degrees. You need but it's like a weird 78 degrees and 60 degrees where you're like, kind of need a hoodie and jeans on. Where, you know, Sly's from the Midwest. I'm from the Northeast. If it's 60 degrees out, when it turns out we're busting out
tank top,
shorts
baby,
and t-shirts and tank tops, like, finally it's warm out. But for it to be almost Thanksgiving and be able to have a nice cold front, it's always nice. So if you need to repair your system, any maintenance plans, now's the time to do it when you don't need that AC turned on. Definitely reach out to Mosley Heating and Air because they've got you covered. Call Mosley Heating and Air at 813-230-3742 or visit mosleyheatingandair.com. It's Mosley Heating and Air, where comfort meets reliability. Check them out. My friend, elephant in the room here. Bucs want to win. They want to make the playoffs. They want to get there. 10 straight years. 10 straight years of 1,000 yards. Mike Evans needs, 93 yards per game to get there over the last 7 weeks of the season. Does he get it?
Man, you'd really like him to, right? And he has such a favorable schedule to get there. He needs, like you said, 90-something yards a game. I don't think he gets there, though, JC. The fact that he only has one game this year where he had 94 yards, he has a favorable schedule, but I just don't see it. Do you?
You know, Buccaneer Bryce says it's one or the other, and if we're not going to make it. The biggest fear that I have during this second half, and I'm glad Bowles addressed it and Baker addressed it today, is force feeding Mike.
Yeah, I don't want to do that.
You can't do it. You can't. And they both addressed it like, hey, Mike wants to win, and I know Mike wants to win. You would love to keep that streak going. There's never been anything like it from your rookie season on, you know. I don't see it. I don't see it. I think he just missed too much time.
Yeah.
And even when he didn't miss time, he just hasn't been the focal point of the offense. The offense has truly been a go through your reads and get it out. What the defense gives you is what you're taking. And Mike hasn't, I don't think Mike has fallen off at all, but Mike hasn't been able to take the top off necessarily like he used to.
Yeah.
He hasn't been that threat or just, he's been drawing double teams. And he's going to draw double teams because there's no Chris Godwin there. There's no one to really make a team fear anybody else. No one stepped up. You got to get him the ball a lot, but you can't force feed him to hit a number. And if you can force feed him to hit a number, it's got to be week 18 against the Saints, and you've already got a playoff spot locked up. And then you just say, Mike, we're throwing it to you almost every play. Get your ass open. How far are you away? And that's it. But the last thing you can do is force feed him, make turnover worthy throws and ultimately interceptions, and potentially overwork him to where he's getting injured, and you lose him for the year, and then there goes your playoff hopes at all. So I don't think so. I don't think Bryce says he got 1,113 games before. Again, this is 93 yards in 7 games per game. Like, you can have some big games that'll chunk some yardage off, but he's got to have several big games. He's got to have at least 3 games of 150.
Yeah,
like to make it a chance.
I don't think that's happening. And just the way the offense is designed with Liam Cohen, like kind of that Cooper Kupp role, that was filled by Chris Godwin. That's not going to be filled by Mike Evans. Even if he's targeted 10 times a game, who's to say he gets 100 yards? Maybe he only gets 70 or 80. Yeah.
That leads to my next question, right? Because it's winning over 1,000, but can the Bucs win? Can they make a run? Can they make the playoffs? Got a little help. I talked about it in the beginning of the show. Got a little help from the Falcons, dropping another game this time to the Lions. Back-to-back losses by the Falcons to the Saints and the Lions. They still have the Chargers on deck. They still have the Commanders on deck, and they still have really another tough team. I can't think of it. Another over 500. Chargers,
Commanders. The Cowboys following the Chargers.
Cowboys, but I didn't count the Cowboys because they suck. It's another team. Whatever. I'll think about it. I'll get it out there once I think about it, or someone else tell me who it is. It's another team that's above average that are doing good besides the Chargers and the Commanders, and they could potentially lose a few more, compared to what the Bucs schedule is. But it just feels like there's some trap games in there. There's like Chargers on the West Coast will be difficult. It feels like one of these games against Davey Boy and the Panthers might be difficult. What are your thoughts? Can the Bucs make the playoffs? NFC North is starting to kind of implode on itself. We thought that was going to be the case. NFC South, all right there, but they're going to start cannibalizing each other. Is that what you think is going to happen? The North and the West are going to start cannibalizing each other. That opens a window, and the Falcons maybe drop a few games, but the Bucs need to win out pretty much. They can drop one game, and that's it. Yeah. Do you think that happens? What do you think happens?
So I think I'm fairly optimistic in the Bucs down the stretch, just going from the toughest schedule in the league to now the easiest down the stretch. But this week against the Giants, JC, definition of a must-win game, but also the definition of a get-right game. You're talking about a Giants offense that's averaged 15.6 points a game, is going from Daniel Jones to Tommy DeVito. You're telling me this Bucs defense can't get back on track? If they give up 30 points this week, we riot. I just... Like if they manage to lose this game, I don't see them going 500 down the stretch, and they very well could finish 8-9. And I think they can get there if they beat the Giants, they beat the Panthers, beat the Raiders, they get back up over 500. They can win 10 games. And you talk about the NFC North, the NFC West, those teams starting to face each other more. One of them probably slips out of the race and maybe fights for a wild card spot. The Bucs, even if they don't win the NFC South, they go 10-7. They could probably get that 7th wild card spot, and at that point, anything can happen. Right. But they have to start winning. They can't be losing in the fourth quarter, as you mentioned with what Larry Foote had to say. They can't be making missed tackles or missed assignments. At this point in the season, every game is a playoff game, and they have to go out there and act like it and go out there and win. That's the biggest thing.
Yeah, basic stuff. You can't miss basic stuff. Yeah. Fundamental stuff, rudimentary stuff that you learn at Pop Warner age. You got to be able to execute these assignments. Everyone's got to do their job. Nathan Phil's made Vikings. They play the Vikings too. So 3 losable games for that team. And that could get you right in the mix in the NFC South. Remember, you got to be a game ahead of them because they got the tiebreaker. So we'll see kind of how that all plays out. I think they can do it. I think I had them at 11-6. I don't think they run the gauntlet, but I think 10-7 makes a lot of sense. I have them losing to the Chargers. I had them losing to the Cowboys, but that's a shit show. The Chargers, I think West Coast trip kind of traps. They've been really good on offense and defense. We'll see. But the Bucs, you're right. They need to come out, make a statement game on both sides of the ball. This needs to be a game where they score like 33, 35, 34 points and hold the Giants to like 13. And it needs to be that kind of blowout type of game. And it needs to be over fast. For me to have full courage of them going forward. So, Adam, thank you so much for tuning in. That's going to do it for us here. Adam, go ahead, promote yourself. Where can they find your work? What are you up to? What do you got going on? Let the people know.
Yeah, so you can catch me on the Pewter Report podcast every Thursday. It's myself and Matt Matera, and my handle's up here. You can find me on X, Adam Lives On, and be sure to check out my 10 threads after the game, as well as different stories throughout the week.
Yeah, he's crushing it over there at Pewter Report. If you're not following him, follow him right now because he's a great follow and an up-and-coming star in this industry for covering the Bucs. He's been doing a heck of a job here. So that's going to do it for me here at the Pirate Parlay Podcast. I want to thank everybody for listening. Thank everybody for tuning in live here on YouTube. Thanks for all the comments. Make sure you guys are liking, subscribing, turning on notifications, telling a friend, get more people, more eyes on this. We're going to be back later this week with a in-depth preview of the Giants like we always do, going behind enemy lines, figuring out what the Bucs needed to win, so we are well informed of what to look at, what to look for. You guys can be the most informed Bucs fans on the internet, on the interwebs. We will talk to you guys another time. It's for me over here, JC Allen at Parlay Podcast. For Adam, we're out of here. See you guys later. Peace.
And that's a wrap. Hope you don't miss us too much until next time. Follow the Sick Podcast Pirate Parlay on YouTube, Facebook, Google Play, and Apple Podcasts.